people had this impression that autism means no empathy, for example. Back then, in those days, no empathy. Or you couldn't put yourself in somebody else's position and experience life as they might. People had this impression of what autism was, and it wasn't me, and it wasn't the autistic people I knew. We were actually really empathetic, at times too much so. So I thought, no, there must be more to autism than the textbook tells me. They call it eye contact, but that was a very strange expression, because contact for me meant what you cover your textbooks in at school. And I thought, there's no contact over my eyes. What are they on about? But they meant connecting by looking at the people. And I thought, well, okay, but I'm listening. And if I look, it's really hard to listen. So what do they want? They want me to notice or not? So then I began to think, so what's the difference between people who look, listen, move, think, process? It's all about attention. And it's all about doing several things at once. And I don't do that as an autistic person. I tend to focus on one thing at a time, looking or listening, etc. And I came across other people, and I interviewed various people who, as autistic people, and they said the same thing. We're very single-focused people. We're very single-minded. Yes, we're literal and black and white, but it's not black and white in the way that non-autistic people have been attributing to us. We're literal until you explain things to us, and then we can grasp that wider understanding. So I thought there's got to be more to this. So I wrote down a series of things that I believed were what autism was, and I spoke to another psychologist, Vicky Bitziker, a friend here in Victoria at the time, and we worked through how that could impact or what the brain might be doing to work with single-focused attention compared to people who divide attention very easily and can seemingly adapt to change very well, and all these things. What we are as autistic people is a bit like you got the music boxes that are stereo, and you got the ones that are mono. And I said, we're really mono. We're really not stereo. We don't move between the two and get this bigger framework. The idea about single attention and monotropism as single attention, which is single focused interest, are from the same root cause, same root source. The differences between monotropism, mono just means single, tropism is just a word for channels, single channeled, single focused. Polytropism is a term we tend to apply to non-autistic people. Poly just means many. If you're not autistic and you can shift attention really well and you can move between things even when you're not interested, that's a great gift, especially in the world of social interaction. You can accommodate a whole heap of things, demonstrate and show interest when you're not even interested. It's called lying, but they're really good at it. So if you're a monotropic autistic person, so allistic and autistic are those two, allistic, polytropic, autistic, monotropic, they're from the same kind of Greek foundation for the wording, but so it puts us on a similar or a same equitable sort of place, rather than, if you use the word neurotypical, it makes it sound like they're the usual and the normal ones, and we're not. But actually, being autistic is normal for me, and so I prefer monotropic. I prefer to call them polytropic or allistic people. Object permanence, or an understanding that things can still exist when they can't be seen. That's the nature of something that's permanent. It's not just objects, it's seasons, it's people, it's places. There's a whole world of constant change. My object permanence, my awareness of something as still existing, still here, still happening, if it's out of sight, if I can't see something, I lose the connection to it, literally. When I was studying at the University of Bradford in Yorkshire, in the UK, I knew absolutely academically Australia existed. I could see it in the book of maps. I know it was still here. but I had no sense. I couldn't feel my family. And a friend at the autism support group said to me, "Have you got a photo of your family?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Put it in your wallet. Look at it frequently. Look at it breakfast, lunch, and dinner time." And that photo of my family and my looking at it connected me to a feeling of their presence, and I was able to know they still existed, more than just in an academic way. So quite often visual things will be quite helpful for me in connecting to an understanding. So you can have academic awareness, academic knowledge of object permanence. You can have an understanding that someone is still there, a place is still there, the season is still there, the sun is still shining, even if you can't see it. You can have that awareness academically, but the feeling of and knowing it is a very different thing. So when we think about the emotional landscape, people sometimes use words like emotional intelligence, which I'm not real keen on, uh, and that disconnection, which they also often align with the lack of empathy. It's not about empathy. It is about connection, and that is different for an autistic person because of things like being monotropic. So if all of your attention's taken over by whatever it is you've noticed, it's not always a special interest. It might be a bit of fluff on the carpet. It might be a dirty mark on something. It might be rain, water, and whatever is capturing your attention takes over everything. It could be a headache. It could be what you're ruminating on, that you're not worth anything, that you're not valuable, that you're hopeless. Whatever it is, captures everything, every aspect of your attention. There's no spare attention for anything else. So if all of your attention is taken up with whatever it is, how do you have attention to feel? How do you have attention to notice an element that most people seem to be able to connect to as well as think? It seems absent. It's not absent. It's just that there's no attention to notice it for that moment. And that's a very different landscape to what allistic, non-autistic people experience, because they can shift their attention very quickly between a number of things. They can feel, think, process, walk, talk. You're drinking from a cup of coffee all at the same time. They're amazing, but they are better equipped socially than I am, unless I'm living and working in that social realm where my interest and passion lies. If I had to say 3 top things that are a little bit like myths that people believe about autism, one of those myths is that we don't feel, that we don't have empathy, and that's a huge myth. And the reality is, being literal, being stuck in the moment, if you like, can knock out the connection to what might be happening with somebody else. So it can seem like we're lacking in empathy. But what we're actually done is we're down a rabbit hole and we're stuck. And that's taken everything over. It's a very different concept. So empathy is available when our attention is available and when we're connected. Another myth about autistic people is that we're all like Rain Man. It's a film made many years ago that meant in this film, this lad was able to drop a box of matches on the floor and count them all in one go. So we're all great at something, numbers or words or something. We've all got this particular skill. That's a myth. We're human. We're as diverse as any other human, and we'll have all sorts of skills, absolutely, but they may not be extraordinary. They may not be extraordinary. We need to be known for who we are as people, and our human rights should be, valued as people. And a third myth, I think, about autism is that usually it's a male thing, that men are usually more likely to be autistic and that women are not. And again, that's a huge myth. All it is really is that women have what we call double X chromosomes. They're the sex chromosomes that usually tell you whether you're male or female. Males have 1X, 1Y, usually. Usually women have 2X. And on the corner of the X chromosome, that's where it's coded for sociability. So as autistic females, you are doubly able to notice what's happening for other people. So you're more likely as a female to mask, copy, try to fit in, try to do what people keep wanting you to do, which means you're more likely to be incredibly exhausted a lot of the time, but more likely not to have your autism noticed. And that's masking will knock out a lot of what we think of as autistic qualities and characteristics which are present when a person isn't masking. So when I might have suggested something, somebody has asked me a question, and I've said, well, I'm autistic and I'm not keen on change. They say things like, oh, me neither. Aren't we all a bit autistic? And no, we are not. It's a little bit like, well, it's not really, but you could use an analogy that says, can you be a little bit pregnant? No, you can't, but you can show a lot or a little, but you're either pregnant or not. So, no, autism is a broad spectrum and it has lots of facets to it. And people have their personalities and they have their cousins that come with that. And a whole heap of things that are make up that person, absolutely. But saying, aren't we all like that, actually takes away what I'm trying to share with you. You're telling me what my experience isn't real. You're telling me that we all have some of that and we all manage, so why don't you? And that's not helpful. So that might be a clinician trying to validate me in the way that they know, because for holistic people, perhaps it's nice to be thought of, oh, I'm just normal, we're all like this, and yeah, look, you're going to be all right, and da-da-da. But that doesn't work for autistic people. That's not who I am. And by somebody saying, aren't we all a bit like that? You are disputing what I'm telling you. You're making this not true. And I'm not going to share with you because you're not going to hear me. And I'm not willing to put myself through that anymore. This is why it's so important that they need to understand. So living as an autistic person has huge positives, has lots of really amazing good things about it. I would not let go of being autistic to become a non-autistic person. I think their lives are full of all sorts of demand. I don't know how they manage. I don't know how they cope. So I wouldn't let go of my autism for that. Being autistic for me enables me to focus, to get into a place of flow, achieve an awful lot of stuff in my area of passion. It enables me to connect to parts of what I'm interested in ways that wouldn't. So when other students were out, apparently they enjoyed it. They liked to go out being drunk and loud and noisy. They called it socializing. I'd be writing an essay and I'd do well at my studies. At whatever I was interested in, I do well at. And whether that's somebody mowing the lawn at the golf course in straight lines, detailing a motor car, or, an engineer, a doctor, whatever that person's strengths and gifts are, they'll be good at those. They'll absolutely shine at what they're good at. If you're a clinician, a practitioner, and you have a client come into your office, maybe you know they're autistic, maybe you don't. But if you do, you need to understand that will mean very likely they're monotropic, they're single focus people. And that's going to mean looking at them through that lens very differently if they've come into your office and they're not autistic, but they're owlistic. They've got access to a wider variety of attention, a wider variety of understanding. They just are connected to a whole heap of wider options, if you like. If you're owlistic and you're that kind of a person who's really good at social, possibly, not always, but at least you get the social understanding. For autistic people, we're really good, I think, too, at social, as long as we're interested. If it's something connected to me as a monotropic person, I can relate to that. So if I'm a client coming into your office and I'm monotropic, it's no good working with me as if I were polytropic. I don't I I don't connect there. I don't operate through that shared attention. There are lots of barriers because you won't get their cognitive style. You won't understand the autistic lens. You'll try and relate to them um, as you would anybody else, possibly, thinking that that's equitable. But actually, it isn't, because you're not getting who they are as a person. So you're going to try to work with them and support them in ways that won't work. Barriers will be many. You might use metaphorical language, which I find quite difficult as an autistic person. You might use something called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. They're well-known psychological therapies, and that might work. And there are whole books written for autistic people on CBT saying that this is very useful. As an autistic person, I don't find it useful because it's not accepting me where I'm at. It's telling me that I'm not okay, that I need to change my thinking. It's telling me that if I change my thinking, that will impact on how I behave. So therefore, my behavior is not okay. So all the messages I'm getting are I'm not okay. And that's not the good premise to start with. So validating the autistic experience is really crucial, because I want to get on as a clinician, I want to get on or move into a place with the person that I'm working with that says, you're okay, I get you, this is okay, we can do this. As autistic people, we grow up hearing all the time that we're not normal, that we're not okay, that there's something wrong with us. Even the language used in the diagnostic manual talks about autism spectrum disorder. So we're disordered. So we start off not okay. So what's the point? What's the point in life? What's the point in anything? And that's not the message we want to convey as a clinician to someone that we're working with. We need to convey the opposite message. And we have to assume as clinicians that the persons we are working with and supporting are complex. They need us to be trustworthy. They need to know that they're safe. This has to be a safe space where you can be whoever you are. Masking is huge in the world of autism. I call it adaptive morphing, because we adapt to morph into a situation so that we can be accepted. It's not something I was ever good at, and I don't think I've ever practiced, but I certainly know lots of people who that would be true of. So the person that presents in your office, if you're a clinician in an office, will very likely be someone that then that they think this is how they should be in your office. And that mightn't be the person they are in reality. So we've got to take time to create a safe space to listen. We need to give people time to process what they're hearing, because people use their hands a lot, they look at you a lot, they talk a lot, and there's an awful lot to take in sessions. So for autistic people, those things are overwhelming. A lot of sensory stuff, overwhelming. I was in ED recently and very fortunate to have a doctor get down on my level, didn't lord it over me, because I wanted to thump him if he had. I was so wound up. And he said, "Do you need the curtains drawn, When?" I said, "Yes, please." He said, "Do you need the lights dimmed?" And I just looked, so I wasn't sure, do I need them or not? I couldn't tell, I was too distressed. He said, "I'm going to dim the lights for you, mate. I'll come back in 2 minutes." And he came back exactly 120 seconds later. It was so, I just, everything within me just went like that. So having somebody notice, take the time in the middle of all of that chaos, it was a very chaotic time, was very helpful. If taking the time to do that will actually give you more time. If you don't, if you haven't got time for this, sit down, sir, be quiet, and people yell at you, which raises the sensory overwhelm that I'm already going through and just makes me want to scream or hit somebody. That's not helpful. Quiet space. You're okay, I'll be with you shortly, would be a lot better. The good news is that we can make huge changes with small things. So small things like a quiet space for someone, listening to somebody. As autistic people, a lot of us really like fidget toys. Cuddling a soft toy, having something to fidget with is can be really useful, even if it's a pen, and that's annoying for me if someone's pushing up and down on their pen. But small things that do not cost a lot of money enable a person to feel grounded, heard, and enable them to chat because the atmosphere that they're in is conducive to chatting. Talking when lots of going on is really difficult to do. When people are giving you lots of options about things, what do you need? What would you like? That's really difficult to answer because I don't know. So I can't tell you. But what would be helpful is to have 2 or 3 things that we know autistic people benefit from and implement them. You don't have to say, would you like such and such? Because I might not. I'm too distressed to know. So when we can't advocate for ourselves, which is a really common place to be in, if I've gone in to a clinic or into a hospital or into a place because I'm unwell, mentally, physically, whatever that may be that's happening for me, then for the first thing for me that I lose is speech. I try to have things written down that I can carry with me and just pass across to a receptionist. I have all my medications written down. I wear things like a sunflower band to let people know I have a hidden disability. I've got a medical band here that's got my allergies on so that I don't have to depend on my voice to tell people. So if clinicians could let people know, if a GP could let people know, if it was commonly known that you could have a list of things that you need, and pass them to me, that would be really good, and that doesn't cost a lot of money. And an organisation can have that ahead of time, and that can be made publicly known. You can even advertise it on telly. If you're going into a situation where you've got to pass information on, have it written down, have it in your wallet. Being able to pass it forward would be useful. I have a card in my wallet that says I'm autistic, and these are 3 things that I need. Unfortunately, when I'm in a position of need, as in needing to access that, I can't even dig into my wallet to get it out. I can't think about that. I can't process that. So it's got to be on me in a way that other people notice. It's not accessible for me. It's a nice idea, but it doesn't work for me when I'm really distressed. There are so many things that we could be doing to make life so much more accessible for autistic people. Training other people, letting them know about what autism means, having people not just aware, but practically actioning what they know so that it's part of their speech. When somebody says, hi, I'm Jack, I'm your nurse, for now, I'm going to pull the curtains around. Is that okay? Small things. But if that's built into their introductory speech that they say when they're interviewing somebody, that would be useful. I'm sure there's lots of things, how you decorate a place, how you furnish it. All of those things contribute to whether someone feels safe, calm, and so on. And I know you've got to think in institutions, hospitals, and so on about cleanliness and hygiene. So it's unlikely that you've got carpet that will soften the noise. I understand that. But there must be things that can be done that make it less overwhelming. In everyday life, ordinary just walking down the street can be overwhelming. So going into a place where there's lots of noise, chaos, people, things I'm not expecting is doubly overwhelming. If what we do for everybody will suit the autistic person, what we pitch for an autistic person will meet everybody's need. So it's not I'm doing this in case an autistic person comes in. This is generally part of my everyday care for anybody, so that I am prepared if an autistic person comes in. I think it's got to be that way round. So sometimes people will say, we can't operate this place on the needs of a minority group. This is what we do, and we can't just make changes in case there's one person there that needs it differently. But I'm arguing that that one change is called universal design. That one change that we do for the autistic person, if we make life accessible for people in wheelchairs, whatever it is, will actually meet the needs of everybody. So it's saving money long term. It's enabling and facilitating whoever comes into your clinic. It's a different way of thinking, but universal design it has to be. Our common ground is our humanity. I operate different cognitively. I operate different emotionally. My sensory systems operate differently, but we still have them. We all have a cognition. We all have a sensory system. We all have an ability to relate. It's just knowing and finding out how to join the dots. It's knowing how to communicate and connect in ways that make sense. And for autistic people, if you're wanting me to join you, you need to join my sensory system or interest system first. This is really old psychology. You join the child where they're at. You join the adult where they're at when it comes to autistic people. Otherwise, I can't attend to you. All of my attention's already taken up. I can't shift that very easily. You need to join me, and then we can go together into whatever it is that we're doing. Being assessed and diagnosed as autistic and ADHD with some learning differences, dyspraxia, I want to say dyscalculia, I think that's the right one, where you have issues with numbers. A number of things of that nature. It made it quite hard to get employment, to work. So I thought, I'll have to go back to school. So I had 4 kids, and when the youngest was 8, I went back and did the last 2 years of high school. I came back to education because when I was at school, people didn't really believe that I could learn. I was misdiagnosed with intellectual disability as a toddler. So there was no expectation that I could learn. So I was always kept down at school in special classes and stuff. So going back to school, I did the last 2 years of VCE here in Victoria in Australia as a 38-year-old. And I did really well, which everyone was surprised about, including me. So I got in a high enough score to go to university. And I thought, I really would love to be a journalist or a writer or something, but I don't know that would benefit many people as such. So perhaps I should do psychology. And that's what I did. I studied psychology right through to PhD, and I registered as a psychologist in Britain. Studying autism, became my area, if you like, of expertise.